So these are the materials that I'll be using for my jumpsuit. I have my fabric here that is 2 yards, but I would advise you get 2.5 to 3 yards. I have my paper, my pattern paper, my rulers, my straight ruler, and my semi-pattern master. Paper scissors, fabric scissors, my marker, pencil, and eraser, sellotape, pins, tape measure, glue, as well as my long ruler. I'm going to be using the following measurements for my jumpsuit. For my top, I'll start by tracing a guideline at the top of my paper, which is going to serve as my shoulder line. On this point, I'm going to be marking 3 inches for my neck point and a half of my shoulder measurement, which is 7 inches. On that point, I'm going to mark down 1 inch, and from the 1 inch, I'm going to mark my bust measurement divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. This is going to be my armhole depth and is going to serve as my bust line. I'm just going to transfer the half shoulder measurement again so that I will be able to draw a straight line. I'll now square out my armhole depth horizontally so that I can have my bust line. Then connect my neck point with my shoulder point for my shoulder slope. Now I'm going to be marking down the following points. I'm going to be marking my bust point, my under bust point, and my front half length, which is going to serve as my waistline. Using my semi-pattern master, I'm going to square out all these points horizontally. I'll now label my lines. I have BL, which is my bust line, BP, my bust point, UBP, my under bust point, and WL, which is my waistline. On my bust point, I'm going to mark half of my apex to apex measurement, and that same measurement I'll mark on my waistline so that I can draw a straight line from my waistline through to my bust line. This is going to serve as my dart line. On the left side of my dart line, I'm going to mark half an inch, which I will connect to my apex point. On the right side of my dart line, I'm going to mark 1 inch on my under bust line and another 1 inch on my waistline. This will enable me create a little fullness around my bust. I'll now connect my apex points with the point on my under bust using a curve, and from the under bust to my waistline, I'll connect with a straight line. Now on my bust line, I'm going to mark half an inch on both sides of the dart line, which I will connect to the apex point using curves. I'll now mark a quarter of my bust measurement on my bust line, and I'll do this by jumping my dart. So I'll start by measuring from my center front to where the dart begins, and then I'll skip this opening and then continue my measurement from there. Now my underbust line, I'm going to do the same to mark a quarter of my underbust measurement. So I'll measure from the center front to the starting of the dart and then jump the dart and continue my measurement. The same thing I would do for my waistline to mark a quarter of my waist measurement. I'll connect my points on the side to create my side seam. So I'll connect my underbust point to my waist point, and then from my bust line I'll connect to my underbust. To add a little depth on my neckline, I'm just going to mark down 0.5 inch, and then I'll connect this point to the dart. On my side seam also, I'm going to mark down 0.5 inch, which I'll connect to the dart. Remember to always label your pattern pieces. So this is my side front and I'm going to cut it twice, and my center front is going to be cut once. Now on my side seam, I'm marking up from my waistline by 0.5 inch, which I will connect to my dart. I'm done with the front of my pattern. I'll go ahead and draft out the back. Now I already have my shoulder line and my bust line. I'm going to mark my 3 inch for my neck point and half of my shoulder measurement. And from that shoulder measurement, I'm going to mark down 1 inch, which I'll connect to my bust line. I'll then connect my neck point to my shoulder point as well. Now for my back neck depth, I'm going to mark 1 inch from my shoulder line. I'll square out from that line horizontally at about 2 inches, and then from the 2 inches, I'll connect the neck depth with my neck point. From my neck depth, I'm going to mark down my back length measurement, and for me that is 14.5, so I'll mark 14.5 as my back length measurement. I'll square out from that point towards my side seam.
I don't deny there's some strange evolutionary process going on, but mankind won't be destroyed. The fact that you and I are working here today is evidence of that.
On my bust line, I'm going to mark a quarter of my bust measurement, and on my waistline, I'm going to mark a quarter of my waist measurement plus 1 inch for my dart. I'm marking down 1 inch from my bust point so that I can square out at about 1 inch before connecting the line to my waist point. For my back dart line, I'll be dividing the quarter waist measurement by 2, and I'll be transferring the measurement that I get on my bust line. I'll be connecting both points with a straight line. And to complete my dart, I'm going to mark 0.5 inch on both sides of my dart line on the waistline, and on the bust line I'm going to be marking 0.25 inch on both sides of the dart. This measurement will take out any excess or gaping from my back. Now to complete my side seam, I'm going to mark from my bust line 0.5 inch, the same thing that I did in front, and I'm going to mark down from my center back about 1.5 inch depth for my neckline depth. So you can choose to make it deeper, you can choose to leave it the way that it is. It's your choice, but I'm dropping mine by 1.5 inch. Now for my side seam, instead of just measuring 0.5 inch from the waistline upwards, I'm going to measure what I have as my side seam in front, and the measurement that I have in front is what I'm going to transfer to my back side seam. This is to make sure that both front and back side seams perfectly align. Now for my front side seam, I have 6 inches, so that's what I'm going to mark. Now in some cases, your side seam might be much longer than your center back. That is fine. So just make sure that you transfer that same measurement from the front side seam to the back side seam. Now I'm done with drafting out the front and back patterns of the top part of my jumpsuit, but before I cut out my pattern, I'm going to add a strap later on. So I'm going to take the measurement from my shoulder point to where my strap is going to end, and I'll do that for the back as well as for the front. This will make sure that I have measurements for my back strap as well as my front strap, which I will combine and create one strap. Don't forget to note down the strap measurements somewhere that you can easily access it, and usually the best place to do that is on your pattern. I've cut out my front and back pattern pieces, and I've added my sewing allowances of 0.5 inch all round, but on the side seams, however, I added 1 inch for both the front and back side seam. Now my center back, I'm going to be taking in by 0.5 inch at the waistline, and this measurement I'm going to curve and connect to my neckline. This is going to make sure that I have a nice fit at the back of my jumpsuit. I'll now add 1 inch for my zip allowance on my new center back line and then cut it out.